Legion, Episode 5, Chapter 5. I really love this episode. Honestly, I think it was maybe the last 10 minutes. Once the sound cut for all the characters, it was phenomenal. Like, I loved it. I already enjoyed the episode. It was a really good episode from the beginning because we have, not only do we have David feeling like he's gaining control of his powers, which in a sense he was, but it was more along the lines of the monster, kind of the parasite, which now everyone officially knows that there's something else within him. It kind of played on his emotions a little bit, and it's like, hey, if we team up, of course it's still showing up as his friend, it's like, hey, if we team up, you can do better things. And so it does that again in this episode. Once he has a little bit of control, he's able to take Sydney to the astral plane, and they can actually be together and stuff. And so while she's sleeping, he ends up talking to who he believes is Lenny, and it's like, hey, you want to help Amy? All we have to do is team up again. We did it before, got you out of the astral plane, we'll do it again, they won't know what hit them. And so David's like, alright, I want to save my sister, I don't want to endanger anybody else, so that's what I'll do. And that's when things got crazy. Right after that, it just went nuts, because of course the team is like, alright, well, he's gone, we need a plan to get to Amy. But of course they have, army personnel, they have the guy that they call the Eye, who, can like change. I don't know if he's actually shape-shifting. I think it's just more illusions. That's why they call him the Eye. He makes people think that he's like shape-shifting. But they got him. They have just a bunch of people with guns. What are we going to do? How are we going to help David? So of course they end up going to the facility, and it's just chaos. Like, there's just fire and body parts. Like, people are like sunken into the ground. It's like one person, I think it was like their forearm and like their nose up was sticking out of the ground. It's like, yeah, I don't think he needed a lot of help here. So they're going through, they end up splitting up, and it's just dead people all over the freaking place. Or there's nothingness. Like, even with people like blowing up, there were not pieces left behind. So they go through, and we have this split when they get to the kind of the fork in the road, which I loved. I loved that the way they cut that, because I knew they were going to do it, but it still looked cool with the lights flickering, and so when it went black, it came up on the other side. Visually, I just thought that was a great shot. But they go through, and it's like, alright, well, we find the doctor, and Amy's gone, but the doctor's there. They kind of leave him behind. I don't know exactly what the deal was with that. I thought something would be there where it's like the people got to him and they kind of controlled him, and I thought Wallace was going to say something, but they ultimately just kind of leave him, and I was like, oh, well, nothing. They didn't say anything, so it kind of made me feel bad again that he was just trapped there. But they end up getting to like the guy who was in charge, and he's like, it's a monster that wears a human face. So it's like, what in the world is going on here? And then on the other side of that, we see what happened, and it's David being controlled by the monster inside of him, and he's just blowing people up, and he's just like, he snaps his fingers, they explode. The part where he was in the hallway that was like kind of at the fork in the road, I don't know what was happening there. I guess he was like ripping layers off of them, because he had to do it 3 times. So the first time it was like it hurt them, but it kind of just blew off like their armor a little bit, and it seemed like they were still there, so I think it blew off like parts of their actual bodies and not the armor. So he had to like snap twice, and so like something's like blowing up off of them, because there's like smoke constantly coming off of them. And then that third snap, and it was just like boom, and they're gone. And I was like, man, this is really intense. And then it gets down to I don't really know what the deal is with that camera, but of course it gets to that, and it's not David. It's actually the monster, and it's in the tattered clothing and stuff. And I was happy that happened, because no one really knew what was going on with that monster. And while all this craziness is happening, we actually have the 2 Carries going over David's last time in the CAT scan machine. So I thought that was really cool, and it's like all the information is kind of coming together at once, and we see this monster on the video and just blowing people apart, and then the Carries are going through and looking at the video, and it's David shifting between himself, his younger self, and also this monster. And it was really cool. And I was like, I'm glad all this story is finally coming together for the other characters. And also, female Carrie, she survived, which was in the promo, so I knew that was going to happen. But she had a great role in this episode as far as some comedic stuff. I really loved that towards the end, as far as her wanting to fight and him being like, maybe there won't be a fight. And then she was just mad and she jumped out of him and was like, don't kid yourself, old man. And the way that played out when they got to the house. But I love the way they did the story with all the characters finally understanding what this monster is. And as Carrie even explains, maybe they saw the monster when they were actually in David's mind, but just like with David, the monster erased their memories as well, so they wouldn't, realize what happened. So I thought that was really good. Early on in the episode, when David is kind of being a little cocky, they do talk about, I can't remember this woman's name. I always forget the main woman's name, but I remember her husband's name now because they said Oliver. But we find out that that's her husband. I don't believe they mentioned that in the last episode, but she was really happy that David was able to find him, and she's kind of hoping that he can, bring Oliver out of, his weird trap within the astral plane. So that was a cool little moment in the beginning of the episode. But like I said, once they got to the house, I think it really kicked up. Like, I loved that, and all the sound goes off. I didn't expect it to lead to any comedic moments, but the part with Carrie was hilarious to me. And, him going in and he's freaking out and stuff, and he was like, oh, I can't hear anything. And he definitely dropped the MF. It's an easy way to do that when technically there's no sound. And he screams it, and he's just like, you can't hear anything. And then, with him being there, he's, as the other Carrie put it, he's the boring one. And I love that scene where, I swear I wish I could remember her name, but I hate that I can't remember because she has some really important moments in this episode. But she's pointing at him, and he's like, oh, she didn't come. And she kept pointing, she was like, Carrie. And he was like, no. And she yells at, she was like, Carrie. And then she jumped out of him, and she was like, all right, let's go. Because, the action Carrie was there instead of him with just the crown thing. But I love that sequence. And then once they got upstairs with Sydney, that was really good. Her on the stairs, that little, terrifying scene, I would have probably dropped a tear, too, if this random kid ran around the corner. And I love that sequence, too, because it was kind of funny. But I'm like, I probably would have been super freaked out, too. I'm just walking through. I can't hear a single thing. They were splitting up too fast for me as well. Like, as soon as they went in the house, the guy who has, the psychic powers, he, went to a different room. I was like, that's a terrible idea. They can't hear anything. They need to stick together, so that they need to be, 4 to a room so they know what's happening. Because I'm like, I'm not going to separate. Even with my psychic powers, I don't know what's coming up behind me. I can't hear anything. And I was like, he just went to a different room, and I was like, that's a terrible idea. But I love the way they played that entire segment. And Sydney ends up going upstairs. She ends up finding David. She finds Amy, and she finds Lenny, who is actually this crazy creature. And I think this episode finally kind of answered something for me, because I always wondered what was happening when people were seeing certain things. So I'm assuming that the little kid with the big head, the kid from the book, was the parasite leading Sydney upstairs. I don't know if the parasite can be in multiple places at once or how that plays out, but it doesn't seem like that's necessarily the case. They haven't shown that, at least, where we see Lenny and then we see the parasite as itself, or we see the parasite as king, or even as the little boy. It's you see one version of this parasite all the time, and the main version is, of course, the grotesque figure that ends up attacking Sydney towards the end of the episode. But it seemed interesting. I was like, this one kind of did it. They showed every version of it. They even show King at the end. I was like, oh man, even the fake dog was this parasite the whole time, and that's kind of how it started. So I really love that. And we got to see this thing in all of its different versions. And like I said, for me at least, I feel like it answered that question, that it's just the parasite. It's not illusions or anything like that. Every time we see the boy, it's the parasite. Or every time we see, we don't see the dog often, but every time we see the dog or the boy or Lenny, it's always the parasite just taking on a different form to kind of trick people. It's like, oh, I'm just this random illusion, but actually every time we see these illusions, it's always the parasite. So I thought that was cool. At least I feel like that was the answer that they kind of officially gave us in this episode. But I love that. And then we got to the end when Sydney did get up into the room and Lenny kind of jumps at her. And that's when all the sound comes back, but they had it super distorted and stuff. And it was oh man, it was like listening to something on a really old record. That's what it sounded like when Lenny was talking. It was really hollow. And I was like, I love that. The sound that they did, the sound design was just amazing once they did that part. So I love that for sure. And then that's when things do end up getting really chaotic, because we have all the characters in the house, and then the Eye comes along. He switches into the psychic, the telekinetic guy. So everybody's already in the room. Sydney's in there. She's kind of psychically chained to the wall next to David, and they kind of have the parasite just messing with them. we don't really know what happened with Amy. She was kind of just messed up, and that was pretty much it. So I don't know what in the world's going on with her, but she was just kind of trapped. And so everything's happening. All the characters come into the room, and it's like, okay, this is crazy. What do we do now? And then the Eye comes in with the machine gun, and he instantly tries to kill David. And so Sydney and David end up teleporting physically to the astral plane. I would assume that that's what happened because, you know, they weren't shot. Like, if they were doing what they did in the beginning of the episode, they still would have been shot, but they were actually, you know, physically there on the astral plane. So they're inside the room, and that's when David kind of realizes, like, crap, this is what the monster is. Like, he knows what it is, and he's just frozen in place. Once again, audio was very well done, and like you hear like half the words. Like when she's shouting David, you hear like the first half, sometimes you hear the second half. And I believe she was trying to say like it doesn't control you or something like that, or it doesn't have control. Of course it was cutting in and out, so I was trying to make out the whole sentence, but it was really good. And she freaks out. She does a really good freak out. Like, she just naturally gets freaked out when stuff happens, like the actual horror movie. Like, she was shaking, like her hands went up and down like a horror movie. It was just in slow motion. I was like, she looks legitimately scared to me. Like, she looks terrified by this thing. And it's slowly walking around the room, and it almost gets her. And then David is able to do something. He doesn't fully take control, but he's able to kind of launch everyone into the asylum again. So everyone's there. We get to see Sydney, we see David, we see Wallace. We see both Carries that separated, so that was pretty cool. And I don't know if that'll... I mean, considering where they are, I don't know what the effect is really going to be for those two characters. I don't think it matters that much because they can be separated. And then, you know, we see them fuse together towards the end once female Carrie is actually healed enough. Male Carrie is able to fuse with her, and he takes on the damage. But it was cool. Everybody was in there except for one person, and that was the interesting thing, and that was Amy. I don't know if that's significant, but I assume it has to be. Now, it could just be the simple fact that Amy, in David's mind, is the person that's always on the outside of the asylum, because that's what it was in real life. And for the rest of these characters, he could kind of make it up, you know, however he wanted to, because he never had much experience with them. Of course, Sydney was actually there. So he kind of takes everyone to the asylum except for Amy. And I don't know if that means she's like dead or what the case is. It was really confusing, but I didn't notice that even when I was watching it. I noticed it after, and maybe I missed it, but I'm pretty sure she wasn't in the actual circle during that segment. So I don't know, maybe she's just trapped in the house by herself, or she'll be fine. It's really hard to say, but I don't remember seeing her during that segment where they just show all the characters. So I'm excited for this next one for sure. Everyone's memory is kind of wiped. I don't know if that was the monster's doing or David's doing or what the case was, but the monster's still there as Lenny, as like the actual psychiatrist, and then everyone else plays the part of a patient. So it's hard to say how this is really going to play out for the characters, what they do remember and what they don't remember. Based on the promo, David does kind of go back and forth with the parasite. I don't know if it starts the conversation or if he actually remembers what's happening, but it didn't seem like it during that ending segment. So maybe the parasite is just like, all right, I'm ready to just take over, so it starts, you know, to physically battle with him. But I'm really excited for this next episode. This is really my favorite. Honestly, I think, like I said, I really enjoyed the beginning anyway, but just what they did with the end, I loved. And honestly, it was for the sound design. It was just the sound design that made me love it so much, because it was silent. You know, they had like a wind effect or some, it was some sound effect that was in there. It wasn't like 100% silent, but it was just simple. And then when they did bring in audio and stuff, how they had it make, you know, they made it really hollow and stuff like that, and cutting the audio in and out when they were back in the white room at the end of the episode, that was really great. But I love that whole ending segment. In general, the episode was really great because, like I said, the characters, everyone now knows that this beast is inside of David, and it's really not him. It is some sort of alternate entity within his body that's feeding off of him. So I'm glad everyone's officially figured that out. So now they have another giant question as to how do they stop this thing? Can they stop it? It's clearly so powerful. It controls David, and sometimes it utilizes his power. It somewhat has its own abilities as well. So there's a lot of, you know, questions that the team now has to answer. So I was really happy that they found that truth out. And just in general, the action, the intensity of it was really good with David being controlled the whole episode. We find out that David was even adopted in this episode, and Amy didn't want to tell him because after, the parents died, it was like, well, I just didn't think things would get any better if I told you that you were adopted. And our parents were going to tell you, but they never got the opportunity to. So that was a really good moment. And like I said, we don't know what happened with her, if she was like, if she's brain dead, because her body was in the room. So that's like the big question. Like, Amy was there and Sydney was like kind of crawling up to her, then Lenny came out. But she was in the room. We just don't really know exactly what happened to her character. So we might get that answer in the next one. Maybe by the end of the next episode, if they actually escape, all in one episode, they're trapped and they figure it out and they escape all within the next episode. But I'm excited for where they're headed. This was definitely my favorite episode. Just in general, the story was great. Like I said, for me personally, it was the sound design at the end. Once it went silent, it was just like, that was just a really great way. They always do cool stuff, like the way they do the visuals where they have like the movie bars and stuff like that. And they did it in the beginning of the episode. They did it for a long time when they first go to the White Room, and then they like take the bars away. And I was like, well, that was weird to like see the bars just disappear after they've been there for like 5 straight minutes. Because normally it would be like, here's a clip and it's with the bars, and then it'll cut to something. After like maybe a minute, it'll cut to something full screen. But it was like that with the bars for a really long time. And then they slowly went away, and I was like, that felt really weird just watching those bars go away. It felt like we were zooming in, but really the bars were just moving. It was like an optical illusion. But love this episode, obviously. We'd love to know what you guys thought about it, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, and what do you guys think will come of all these characters being trapped inside. I don't know, maybe it is the astral plane. It's hard to say. Maybe he just changed the location and he took everybody with him, and that was the only way he could fight back against the monster, was to kind of pit everyone, just stick everybody together inside of a familiar place that he had. So maybe it's a half and half thing. Maybe he has some control. Maybe the monster has a bit of control. But we'll love to know where you guys think it's headed with all the characters being trapped in the asylum again, and what we might get out of the next episode. And of course, I want to know what you guys thought about this episode in general, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.